not prepared!
Welcome to another Top 5 with Kris 05, guys. Today we're gonna look at what are the best performing decks in the current meta after the midi set. Not much has changed since the last Top 5, but we are seeing some new decks rising in power and popularity, so in this video I will tell you what are 5 of the best decks, but we will also go over all of the best performing archetypes for each class, so stick around to the end. If you want to become a better Hearthstone player, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, and also like the video if you feel what I'm doing is helpful. Also, don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the top 5. The meta is still mainly hunter-oriented, and that is by far the best performing class out there, as you can see. But we also have Warlock, Mage, Paladin, and Druid doing pretty well as well, even though the stats don't really show it as is. But don't forget, these are aggregated archetypes for the popular decks out there, so some are just better than others. We're gonna start off with Hunter, and I'm actually pleased to see that my variant of Hunter is doing very well, and I'm actually gonna feature it in this video, cause why not? It is actually doing super well, and I did peak with it under 150 legends, so that's pretty nice. This is what the deck looks like, and it's basically the standard Beast Hunter, but we also have a few curveballs included in, like the new card Sylvanas, as well as Defense Attorney Nathanos, and we also have a couple of Tarantulas, so you can deal with stuff like Boom Priest, which we have suspiciously not seen a single of for the last 4 hours of playing this deck. Coincidence? I think not. We also have a couple of school teachers in here, and the rest is really standard Beast Hunter, aside from Devouring Swarm, which can be insanely clutch in so many ways. Like, the main reason for this Devouring Swarm to be in the deck is so you can throw a Tarantula at something big, so you can get a couple of Poison Boys, so you can kill 2 big dudes. But don't limit yourself to only saving it for that. You can literally use it for anything, especially in aggressive matchups. You can just use it to throw something like a baddie guest at something, and that way you're gonna get a 2-1 on the board, as well as 1 extra baddie guest in your hand. You can do it as something for a K9atron to get a second copy of it, or you can even get a Sunken Saber for a second time like that. And I've done crazy stuff like even getting Huntsman Altimore fully infused a second time like that, and that is just game breaking. In order for you to be good with this card, you gotta remember the order in which you have played your cards, and don't get fooled by the dormant minions as well. If you've played a minion and it stays dormant, as soon as it wakes up, it does still consider to be played 3 turns ago, so if you played something afterwards, it's not gonna be the minion that attacks first, but the dormant guy you played several turns ago. And yeah, you can basically get more than 1 card back like this, and you can also use it not to be getting your cards back, but just to throw some minions at a taunt, and after that attack with those same minions if they manage to survive in the face. Defense Attorney Nathanos has some pretty good death rattles to choose from, including the Tarantula, your Sunken Saber, or just your Bear, but don't forget Hydrolon heads also consider themselves as death rattles, so you could get as many as 2 death rattles from heads from your discovers on Nathanos, which is pretty sucky. And same goes with Baddie Guest Bat. But most of the time you should be getting some of the good stuff. The main reason why this deck is working so well right now, it's not that there's some cards that are crazy good, but everything in the deck just works perfectly. You have super solid early game, your mid game is pretty good, and also your late game is insane. And everything just clicks together so nicely. I'm definitely expecting some cards to be getting nerfed soon, and maybe Tavish is gonna be going up to 7 mana, maybe Pet Collector is gonna get touched. It did get buffed back in the day, I think it was a 3/3 before, so that might get reverted. And who knows, maybe Wild Spirits is gonna get bumped to 4 mana. I think the really powerful nerf would be Beastalker Tavish going up to 7, because you have so many good 7 drops as is, but not that many good 6 drops, so that is definitely gonna hinder the mid game. But yeah, it's anyone's guess what's gonna happen, but for sure something is getting touched for this archetype in the next maybe 10 days. So be careful crafting this if you're missing too much of it. Matchup wise, obviously I'm gonna have to switch over to something a lot more popular, and this is the more popular deck. Literally I removed 1 collateral damage, which is kind of a situational card, for a Sylvanas, which usually always feels nice. So yeah, matchup wise this is what it looks like. Highlander Paladin is not really a thing just yet, but as you can see it's not an amazing matchup, but not very popular either, and everything else is pretty good. Spooky Mage can be a 50-50, and honestly Big Spell Mage feels a little bit too hard as well, but you should be fine most of the time. Mulligan wise, you want to be curving out, and when going first, you definitely want to have a good 1-drop, be it the Trog, Peasant, or your Baddie. Spirit Poacher is the best thing you can drop on turn 2. Be careful not to limit yourself for the weapon though, which is probably the best thing you can do on turn 3, aside from Wild Spirits as well. Huntsman Altimore is not a bad keep, but make sure you're already curving out well, like you must have have at least a 1-drop to be thinking about keeping stuff like Altimore or Denafrius, but it would be perfect if you already have a 1 and a good 2-drop, like at least a K9 to go with it or something like that. If you already have a good 1-drop, keeping a Doggy Biscuit is also a good idea, and Pet Collector is also not bad if you're curving into it. Going second, however, you can keep a lot more stuff. Still, Spirit Poacher and good 1-drops are going to be good for you here. Peasant is a lot less keepable depending on the class, like if you're against the mage they just ping it. It's still not the worst thing in the world to have, like you force them to ping, but they're kind of doing that anyway on turn 2, so it's not that big a deal for them either. The Nephrius becomes a lot more keepable and you can consider keeping him even without having anything to curve out with. Harpoon Gun and Wild Spirit is still pretty OP. Beastjacker Tavish as well is an amazing recovery tool for you as soon as turn 6 or 5. Pet Collector is still good, and even Asheron Saber. Selective Breeder, it's kinda iffy. Honestly, I don't like keeping it. And yeah, again, Doggy Biscuit, maybe Ramming Mount if you feel you're gonna stick something. So yeah, that's about it. For other good Hunter decks, we basically have a ton of iterations of XL Beast Hunter, and you have to scroll quite a while to actually see something different from that, and that is actually very close to under 50, so it's not even that good. We still have a 30 Beast Hunter variant, but it's not as amazing as it used to be. And there's also Quest Hunter, who recently got nerfed, so it's also under 50. And I don't even see the Rat Hunter that was supposed to be a new archetype. I guess it didn't work out so well after all. Moving now to the next deck, which is going to be Control Paladin, which has been doing quite well. And it did get some good support from the new mini set, in the likes of Order in the Court, which is just a great way for you to get your Cariol and Mr. Smite in a very timely fashion. The deck has quite a good amount of early game removals with Equality and City Tax for some good, basically complete board nuke. You also have plenty of good early game minions. Righteous Defense can be extremely powerful against stuff like big priests or even just big static minions. You have good stuff like Teotar, Spammy Arcanist, and also the new Sylvanas. And at the end you have Mr. Smite, Sire Denafrius, and also Lightforce Carol. All around the deck is not too popular, but it is definitely doing pretty well so far, and you can even see it in top legends, so that says a lot. From the matchup section you can see that Ram Druid is not going to be great for you, but Beast Hunter is going to be pretty good, as well as Spooky Mage and Cursed Imp Warlock, which are both top tier decks, which are very popular. Mulligan wise, we don't have that much stats for it, but you basically want to be curving out, and Order in the Court might also be not a bad idea for you to be holding on to, just so you can ensure that your mid and late game are gonna have the good stuff. Depending on the matchup, Equality might make a lot of sense, but generally you want your Sinful Chef, your Alliance Bannerman, Samra would be good, Seafloor Savior as well, Mugborn Servant, Asheron Mooncatcher, and maybe Knight of the Anointment, and stuff like that. For other good Paladin decks, we have Silverhand Recruit Paladin doing somewhat well so far. Not a big sample size, but the win rate looks decent. There's also a Control Paladin with Jailer included in it. There's a Highlander Paladin doing well. We basically have plenty of good Paladin lists out there, but they're just not too populated just yet. So if you're feeling adventurous, you can definitely try out some Paladin games, and opponents are not even gonna know exactly what they're playing against. Pure Paladin is also still doing kinda fine. On the number 3 spot, we have Cursed Imp Warlock, which is just a great deck right now. And it's feeling really strong and versatile, especially if you know what you're doing with it, and really especially if the opponent doesn't know what they're doing against it. Early game, basically you want to be curving out like your traditional Imp Warlock. You got your good Imps, Flustered Librarian, Location, Wicked Shipment, Fiendish Circle, and Mischievous Imp, and that's just great early game for you. You have a ton of card draw with Impending Catastrophe, and that's going to be super good for you if you manage to pull it off as soon as turn 3 or 4. And about turn 5 and 6, you're basically transitioning to your curse game plan with your cultists. You also have Brand's Brawnbeard in here, so you can double up a couple of curse cultists, or just a single Zacule, which is still going to be pretty powerful, and it's going to give you some much needed healing, because sometimes you are going to be desperate for that. But you also have a couple of Drag Billows, which you can double up with some Tamsin Rome action. Lady Darkvein is going to be insanely good with Abyssal Wave, and yeah, that's about the gist of it. Early game, Imp aggression, and mid and late game, just a ton of curses, and the opponents usually don't really have much to do against you, because early game they're desperately trying to stop you from sticking stuff on the board, and mid game they're desperately trying to stick something on the board themselves, but you just have so much control. Matchup wise, Aggro Demon Hunter and Aggro Druid supposedly look not amazing. Beast Hunter, it honestly does not feel like that good of a matchup for the Beast Hunter, I'm saying. So it really comes down to the Curse Warlock knowing what they're doing. Face Hunter is gonna be 50-50, and Quest Hunter is just gonna be super bad for you because you're basically helping them complete their quest. Blessed Priest and Naga Priest are absolutely destroying you. Adwin Rogue is gonna be on the iffy side, and what is this class here? Yeah, you might have trouble against this exotic class we're seeing down here. Mulligan-wise, going first and second, you basically want your good imps. You're not keeping any curses for the beginning. And if you're already curving out, you might even consider stuff like Imp King Rafam, and Mischievous Imp is usually a great keep, but at least try to have a 1-drop. 1 on the coin, again, all of the good imps. Impending Catastrophe becomes a lot more keepable, and even stuff like Imp King Rafam might make the cut. Don't bait yourself into keeping stuff like Cultist, but if you're against an aggro board-centric matchup, you might consider keeping 1 Grimoire Sacrifice, for instance. And maybe even something like Dreadlich Tamsin in some cases. For other good Warlock decks, we have just Imp Warlock with Gigafin at the end. There's also a variant with Denafrius at the end, but that's about it for the successful Warlocks. It's just iterations of Imp and Curse Imp. Everything else is under 50, so don't even bother. On the number 4 spot, we have Ping 30 Mage, which is doing surprisingly well, and it's even great in top 1000 Legend, so if you're trying to climb high ranks, this might be the deck for you. And it's also faster than your regular XL variant, so there's that as well. You're running a couple of Frozen Touches in this one, which allows you to be pretty aggressive, and you're basically running just the good cards of XL mages, so you can actually get them a lot more consistently, like stuff like Dawngrasp, Mordresh, your Reckless Apprentices, which can be huge, and you also have your Commander Sivara, so you can double up stuff like Wildfire, like your Solid Alibi, like your Frozen Touches, or just anything else, honestly. You're not running any bad spells, so anything doubled up by her is just insane. And you can go for as much as 4 Solid Alibis in a game, which is just disgusting, even 5 if you get it from Dawngrasp again. But yeah, basically your game plan is to aggro down your opponent with very big hero powers quite early. I mean, as soon as turn 9 you can be having some crazy hero power totals. So yeah, the deck is just pretty good. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like. Blessed Priest is gonna be not so good, as well as Ram Druid. Curse Imp Warlock is gonna be on the 50-50, and everything else looks fine. Mulligan wise, going first, this is what it looks like. Wildfire and your Shivering, obviously great keeps. Frostweave Dungeoneer is great for some early game tempo, and a couple of 1/1s you're usually getting are nothing to frown upon as well. Arcane Intellect for some extra card draw, your location is still pretty OP, and Reckless Apprentice as well. Dawngrasp, honestly, you might consider keeping that as well, but try to be curving out into it first. 1 on the coin, here's what it looks like again. Mordresh becomes a lot better for the keep. Reckless and Wildfire still MVP. Dawngrasp as well, and still Shivering, and Amplified Snowflurry are just good cards. For other good mage decks, we have several to pick from, including Spooky XL Mage. Secret Mage is actually doing surprisingly well, but I doubt you're gonna be seeing this in top 1000 ever. Big Spell Mage is still doing pretty good, especially the 40 variant. And we also have variations of Ping Mage, and stuff like that. And now we're moving on to the last deck on the list, which is going to be Ram Druid, which is also doing surprisingly well in top 1000 Legend. We are seeing some of the new cards in this one, including Attorney at Maw, and also Sylvanas the Accused. Other than that, the deck looks pretty much same old Ram Druid from before. With Insatiable Devourers at the end, Raid Boss Nixia and Denafrius. You still have obviously Tapior. You are running a couple of spammy Arcanists so you can destroy early game aggression against you, Teotar so you can steal some good stuff, and quite a few early game cards as well, so you can fight toe to toe with early game aggression from stuff like Aggro Druid and Beast Hunters alike. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like, and these stats are going to be a lot different if you're actually good with this class. The skill level for Druid is really high, and yeah, you gotta really know what you're doing with it in order to really push it to the max. And for the mulligan, here's what it looks like. Going first and second, Guff is still the most broken hero card despite it being recently nerfed. Jerry-Rig is pretty nice. Wild Bloom as well. Wild Growth. Depending on the matchup, you might want to be keeping some of your 1-drops or even stuff like Scale of Onyxia, but that's a little bit iffy and try to be curving into it. Denafrius can also be a keep in greedier matchups, and again, depending on the matchup, maybe even Spammy Arcanist. 1 on the coin, again, pretty much same stuff, but even things like Insatiable Devourer might become a little bit more keepable for you, but I don't know, it's a little bit iffy, honestly. For other good Druid decks, Aggro Druid is still doing pretty well. We also have a Ramp Jailer variant, which is looking interesting, and the rest is several iterations of Aggro and Ramp Druid, which is, yeah, same old. Prestor Druid, not exactly playable right now. For the classes we didn't mention, for Demon Hunter we have several variants of Relic Demon Hunter, Fel Demon Hunter, and also Aggro Demon Hunter, but none of them are having crazy good stats just yet. For Priest, Naga Priest, and Boom Priest are doing amazingly well in Top Legend, Quest Priest is still playable, and also Thief Priest is acceptable, but you really gotta be good with that one to make it work. With Rogues we have Edwin Rogue at the top right now, with a variant with this new scribbling stenographer. Thief Rogue is still doing fine, and Mind Rogue is just above 50%. With Shamans, Control Shaman is doing best so far. Murloc Shaman is playable again. The Evolved Control Shaman is not as good as the other variants. And for this weird class again, we have Enrage Warrior doing some good stuff so far, and it's actually surprisingly decent, but it's very, very unpopular so far, and Charge Warriors probably wanna not ever touch it right now. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you wanna be playing in the October season. If you found the video helpful, a like and a subscribe would really be awesome. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.